Welcome back. We're here with Justice Court Judge, Chief Judge Joe Bonaventure. You've handled some really high-profile cases, and I was just watching the OJ series on TV. It was really interesting to watch that again and refresh my memory on what happened in the criminal case. But then he got arrested here for burglary and breaking into the Palace Station, and then it appeared in your courtroom. Explain the process of how it works with Justice Court and District Court when somebody gets arrested and goes through a preliminary hearing.
Yeah, that's right. In Justice Court, we have jurisdiction. It's a limited jurisdiction court. So in Justice Court, we handle small claims cases, we handle traffic tickets, we handle evictions, but we also have jurisdiction over misdemeanor cases. We also, Justice Court is where all criminal cases start. So when you're arrested on a felony or gross misdemeanor, the first appearance, your initial appearance will be in Justice Court.
So you could, anything from a traffic ticket to a murder case?
Correct.
Yeah.
And when you're arrested for a felony, you'll appear in front of a Justice Court judge, and that judge will advise you of the charges, will determine a bail setting, but will also make a probable cause determination. We'll have a hearing, and we'll decide if there's enough evidence to hold you to answer in the district court, the trial court, while you proceed to trial in front of a jury. And when OJ Simpson was arrested at the Palace Station, the allegations were that he was attempting to take his own property, his own memorabilia back with some other individuals at a hotel room at the Palace Station. He did appear in front of me, and I had a bail hearing, and that was quite a scene. I remember the bail hearing. There was a packed courtroom. In fact, I had to move to the bigger courtroom downstairs at the Regional Justice Center. We had an overflow courtroom for the press, and I remember Marcia Clark was there. She was a reporter, I believe, for one of the TV stations. Yeah. I think it was Extra or Inside Edition, one of those. She was sitting in the front row. ESPN sent reporters there. The Goldmans were there. It was a real scene. I've never before. I had been on the bench a few years at that point, but never seen a hearing like that before. So it was a real interesting hearing. OJ Simpson was there. I heard arguments from both sides. The district attorney himself at the time was David Roger. He made arguments for bail. They happened to come to an agreement, the defense and the prosecution, on a bail setting. And there were conditions of bail. I ordered him not to have any contact with any witnesses in the case. But then I did set a preliminary hearing, and they in fact went forward on a preliminary hearing. I had a 4-day preliminary hearing on the OJ Simpson case, and I did ultimately make the decision that there was enough evidence to hold OJ Simpson to answer to those charges in district court, where he eventually proceeded to trial in front of Judge Jackie Glass and was found guilty by a jury, and he's now serving a prison sentence on that. And there was a lot of renewed interest in the OJ Simpson after that. I believe it was called American Crime Story on FX.
Yeah. And I remember at the time when he got arrested, most people were kind of thinking, oh, this is a nothing deal. And then he ended up, how many years did he end up getting? Do you remember?
I don't remember exactly. I think it was maybe eight or nine minimum, and significantly more maximum. I believe he's up for, and I only remember this because I watched that show, and I believe at the end it said he's up for parole next year, I believe.
Right. Yeah. So in the murder case, everybody was convinced, hey, this is going to be a serious thing. He'll go away for life. That didn't happen. And in the minor thing, he ended up doing some time. But how much pressure is that for a judge? If you saw the series, I was watching Judge Ito, and in my opinion, he didn't come across very well on the TV show anyway. It looked like he made some bad decisions. He got, he just didn't really have the quality control of the courtroom. But he was under a lot of pressure. There's a lot of media attention. When OJ got arrested here, you were under a lot of that kind of pressure. How does that affect, the decisions you make, and just participating in a circus like that?
That was a dramatization, obviously, and for me, obviously it's different from judge to judge, but I don't let it affect me, and we can't let it affect me. I can't let it affect me. outside influences should have no effect whatsoever on a judge, and no outside influences, including publicity, should affect your decision whatsoever. Like I said, Justice Court handles those types of cases, including misdemeanors. I had another high-profile case. Paris Hilton appeared in front of me. She got arrested in Las Vegas for possession of cocaine, which was originally a felony offense, but they negotiated that case to a misdemeanor. So I had to actually supervise that case. And she negotiated her case to a misdemeanor, agreed to complete some requirements. I actually took her plea, ordered her to complete those requirements, and set a status check date. It was an informal probationary period, so I ordered her to stay out of trouble, complete those requirements. She had to complete some community service, I believe. I remember there was a funny picture on the internet of her cleaning some graffiti in a fancy outfit. I don't remember what they were. She was in high heels cleaning graffiti off of a wall. And but she eventually completed her requirements. I closed the case. I remember another case that I had, and there was a lot of pressure on this case. There was a boxer on the undercard of a Floyd Mayweather fight, and he had a warrant out of another state for a very serious crime, and he actually got arrested. He came to Las Vegas for this fight, got arrested at the press conference days before the fight,
Right.
and was on a no bail hold in the Clark County Detention Center, and there was a lot of pressure from outside influences, from the promoter, from the MGM, because this is millions, if not billions, of dollars for the local economy. That this fight, if it wasn't going to go through, and I have to follow the law. I can't let these outside influences affect the way I'm going to rule on a case. And ultimately, there were motions before me for this individual to be allowed to fight, for the Clark County Detention Center to actually bring this individual to the fight, allow him to fight, basically while in custody, and then to bring him right back to the detention center. And ultimately, he was not allowed to fight in that fight.
Yeah.
You can't let outside influences. You just have to follow the law.
You mentioned the Paris Hilton drug thing. What is the typical process today when somebody with a first offense gets arrested for possession of cocaine or marijuana, whatever the substance may be? I remember 20, 30 years ago, the public pressure was, hey, 3 strikes you're out, put them in prison. New York had a very strict law. Now it seems like, hey, let's treat it more like an illness and send people to rehab instead of putting them in prison. Is there an official policy in the court system here?
There's so many factors, and the district attorney's office obviously would be involved in that decision. You'd have to look at the person's criminal history. You'd have to, and there's alternatives to incarceration, and that's a growing trend here. We have what's called the specialty courts now. That's a growing trend. In Las Vegas Justice Court, we have a drug court, we have a DUI court, we have a veterans court, and that's to really identify what the root causes of criminal behavior are, to treat mental illnesses or substance abuse and addictions. So that is a growing trend. I'm sure you've heard in the news overcrowding issues at the detention center. No, we want. There seems to be that trend towards keeping individuals who are violent offenders and repeat offenders in custody, but those with lower level, say what you just said, the drug possession charges, out of custody, and to try to treat those individuals. But if they can't be treated, and if they progress through the criminal justice system, then there's always incarceration as an option.
These judicial elections, I always feel, are the most important elections that we have every couple of years, because they affect most people directly. You elect the President of the United States, most likely doesn't change your own life, but appearing in front of a judge in a courtroom does. Our legislature recently made some changes in the election laws. One of the changes is, in these judge races, sometimes we have multiple candidates, and one of the changes they made is that, hey, if you get 50% plus 1 vote in a primary, you don't have to run in the general. So Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing, and I agree with you. The judicial elections really do affect people, especially the Justice Court. If you're going to appear in court, you're going to appear at the Justice Court level most likely. You, or your friend, a family member, you're going to appear for a traffic ticket, for a minor matter, a small claims matter, an eviction matter. You're going to appear in the Justice Court level. And judicial races begin earlier than the other races. The filing period begins in January rather than in March. And they changed the law this year, or last year in the legislature, to go into effect this year. And if in the primary, which is on June 14th, there's one candidate can receive 50% of the vote, a majority of the vote, the law says, then that individual is considered elected. And I think that's a good thing, that we can get back to work, that individual can get back to work, and concentrating on improving the court system, and hopefully that's a good thing.
I mentioned earlier in the show, Commissioner Sisolak and I were talking about the caucus thing. And in this primary, since there's not a presidential primary, I mean, the turnout's very low. So you have very few people really making an impact on who the judges will be.
This is an interesting election year. That's for sure. With that presidential election, obviously the turnout will be much higher in November without the presidential election on the primary ballot. So it'll be an interesting year.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chief Judge Joe Bonaventure. And how do you like being Chief Judge?
I love it.
Love
it's
it?
great.
You get to tell the other judges what to do?
Not quite.
That will never happen, right? All right. Thank you so much, Judge.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week. Whether you're on the road, watching television, surfing the web, or on the go, with our new app, wherever you are, we'll be there to help.
Enough said. Call Ed.